Oh, my name is Ethan. Welcome to the Haystack. So today, if you saw a thumbnail, you saw a church with all these paintings and everything out on the side. Little looks like little shops, and it says the winding up scene. And this is a term that has been used quite a bit. It was used with Ezra Taft Benson um, previously, but then it was used again with Thomas S. Monson. Here we also have our guest, Christian. Yeah, Christian's live with us too.
Hi, Jonathan.
How's it going? And
Doing well.
what temple are you at?
What's up with me?
Yeah, what's the temple's name?
Oh, Newport Beach Temple.
Newport Beach.
Yeah.
So
I realize now you asked what temple I'm at. At first, it's kind of like,
yeah,
what's up with you? Newport
so
Beach.
so we thought it might be good to go live. We haven't gone live in a long time. Um, had some good friends. We have Christian here, Betty Horn, who has her own YouTube channel. Um, she's in the comments down below, and we have Catch the Buzz, who also has a YouTube channel. So those two people, please subscribe to them. Um, Unfortunately, one is under the weather, the other is working still. But Christian and I were able to meet together, and today we want to talk about the winding up scene. What does that mean, and why is it being used by the church? Um, so I'll start off with the reason, what that actually means. It's a business term, and it's essentially a liquidating of your assets. You're going out of business, you're selling off everything you can, and all those who have contributed to the business, you know, you're paying their their contributional amount and the interest that they've received, and basically you're closing up shop and things are still going as business as usual. So that's the way it seems. And it's funny because the footnote thumbnail I used has the church with all of these paintings and everything, and it reminded me at our church building for the past couple of years they've been uh, liquidating the things in the library, pictures, manuals, books, things like that.
Yeah, same in our
um,
building.
Same.
Yeah.
It seemed like it came at the time when President Nelson, when he became a prophet, was pushing for a more home-centered church. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's at least when I started noticing it. And we collected a ton. We have a ton. It's in storage now because we're wanting to move. So it's all, most of the stuff is boxed up, but we got pictures, manuals, old manuals, new manuals. I made a huge collection from DI when I was on the mission. I would pick up books from DI for like $1 of old church manuals or teachings of the prophet, and I just mail it home to be put
Yeah.
into storage.
I got a couple of things that I saw, like they put out on a little cart in front of the library, like kind of take this while you can kind of thing. And they
Mhm.
had cassette tapes of a church regional conference that basically all the general authorities went to in 1980 at the Rose Bowl.
Really?
It was actually the actual Rose Bowl, and I remember being there as a 10-year-old and just dying of the heat. I was maybe trying to pay attention to the talks the best I could at 10, and it probably wasn't working. People were getting heat stroke and everything, but later on, years later, I saw they had cassettes of that, and I'm like, I'm just going to grab those instead of just having
Mhm.
those thrown away, you know? So they're in my garage now, but I'll play them sometime.
Yeah.
President
I mean,
Kimball, President Romney, and others.
that's actually funny. I believe my priesthood lineage actually comes through President Romney too.
Oh,
He's somewhere in that chain.
okay.
I'll have to check again. I can't remember all the names, but uh,
I do
yeah,
like that they have
the
the priesthood line of authority on the Tools app now.
say that one more time.
I do like that they now let you check your priesthood line of authority on your profile on the Tools app.
Oh, I got to do that sometime. I've looked
Yeah,
up
it's neat. I
patriarchal
checked a couple weeks ago.
blessings. I've looked up patriarchal blessings for past loved ones.
Oh,
This is one I'll have to look up. That brings up something
okay.
actually I'm very curious. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So we do have some people commenting in the comments. Betty, again, she has a YouTube channel. Please subscribe to her. Um, she said she didn't realize that the winding up scene that was used by Ezra Taft Benson and by President Nelson is a business term. Um, and again, just to refresh, that's a liquidation of the assets, paying off what is it, the investors, so they at least break even or at least gain whatever interest that they put into the company. And it's funny because so many people call the church it's a corporation, it's a corporation, and we use these business analysis or words to describe what's going on. But really, uh, what's happening is you have an outside consultant that comes in, handles the business of liquidating all the assets, and then things turn over. But it looks like business as usual, and no one is the wiser. And it kind of seems like we've had that to some sense when, as we've digitized our information, as we've become more fluid with our technology, more home centered church. What does that make you think about, Christian?
Well, I'm getting a lot of glare on my screen, but I think I can be seen decently. But I'm trying to look at comments the best I can. But with the winding up thing that you're saying, and with the business and people, some people that are not involved with it might be none the wiser. That's really making
Hmm.
me think that this is really applicable to things now, where there could be things happening behind the scenes, and not every member knows about it. But that doesn't mean they aren't happening.
Yeah, yeah. It's like if you're paying attention in the business setting, you're gonna notice, did that office just get cleaned up? Like, or are we streamlining this now? What's going on? If you're not paying attention, you're gonna miss it, which goes in line with everything we know about the second coming. Is if you're searching for it, if you're looking for it, you'll be able to see these signs, and you'll be able to see the changes happening around you. And Christian Homestead is another good channel. Jared goes over a lot of second coming talks and information, and especially latest news. And everybody is focused on the second coming right now. Um,
It's really
with the
picked up.
winding ups,
It's really picked up, just the watching and being aware. Well, I remember being at a brother's house in like late in October 2016. We were watching conference. The family is gathered around. None of the talks really mentioned the second coming, and then Elder Neil L. Anderson got up to speak, and I said, he's one of the only people that ever mentions the second coming. Well, he ended up mentioning the second coming, and I don't think anybody else did. But come 2018, 2020, bam, second coming, second coming, second coming.
mhm,
It's not unusual anymore.
yeah, even Jared with Christian Homestead has that tracker, his spreadsheets that is in the description of all of his videos. Maybe I'll put it in here afterwards, where you can actually track the topic discussion and look at the presidents of the church and apostles and who's spoken about it, most frequently. So I think that's amazing.
Yep.
Um, the last time I brought up the winding up scene was at the Kirtland Temple purchase when the church obtained the Kirtland Temple. And the reason
Yeah.
that stood out to me is because of Doctrine and Covenants, section 117, which we will be covering in a few weeks or soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there, what we see is, um, oh no, it's on the tip of my tongue. I just had it.
Hi,
The
Inez. And I just want to say that in the comments, there's somebody named Ann L. that says I look familiar. I am getting a lot of glare on my screen. So if you want, if you know me, Christian Zebarth, and you know the connection, you can feel free to say it in the comments. Up to you. I don't know. You were thinking about something, Jonathan? Did it come to you?
Oh, it's a name. I had it just before this. But Betty Horn did mention that the Tampa, Florida temple had its groundbreaking on Saturday, and Elder Anderson um, was presiding. So there was actually 3 temples this weekend that had their groundbreaking, which I think is remarkable.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, I was out in Springfield, Missouri earlier this year. I went to the lot where they're going to build a temple. They haven't done any groundbreaking there yet, but there have been some significant new additions and changes since then. They're going to be expanding uh, where all the things that are going to be put in there. So we're seeing
Okay.
a lot of things accommodating for us right now. In fact, something I want to cover about Missouri and the temple building out there. We got the Kansas City temple. Springfield is going to be getting a temple. And what I think is funny is you've heard the yellow dog prophecy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Not so much
So
as a yellow dog left to wag its tail.
yeah, there's some additional context to that. And I just got reminded of that from
Okay.
Seth with Rise Zion, where he said a yellow dog during that time usually meant a yellow dog Democrat. You know, like
Oh,
they're a diehard Democrat no matter what.
good
And the
insight.
thing is when I was visiting out there, it is a very Christian, very modest community, at least where I was. I've never been to Kansas City, or there's another major city out there that's uh, really disgusting.
St. Louis?
St. Louis, yeah, all those right
Yep.
areas in Springfield. Those are like 3 pinpoints of high crime, but once you get to southern Springfield, it's a little bit better. And you go all the way down to like Branson, Missouri. They have shows. It's like the Las Vegas of the old frontier. The thing
Yeah.
is they don't put up with disgusting stuff.
Mm.
They don't put up with
Keep it clean.
yeah, they keep it clean, and they drive people out of town if which they're probably used to drive people out of town who do not keep it clean. Um, and so it's a very uplifting, very nice area. In fact, when I visited Branson, I found out that one of the sheriffs down there, I think it was, is actually LDS, like the elected sheriff.
Oh, okay.
And I believe the
Okay.
attorney general, I think the attorney general is also in Area 70 for
Oh,
Missouri. So I mean,
okay.
where we once were cast out, and now it's more accommodating, especially towards Christian and conservative views. Um, I don't think there's going to be many yellow dogs left, especially with all the taxpayer funding being funneled through all these private organizations for very progressive
NGOs.
movements. Now now these people don't have the funding to put forth their narrative and their agendas that was being taken from taxpayers, unfortunately. So now it's authentic. So we're gonna see a lot more authentic of a change. So I think this is a big
Okay.
door opening for Missouri. And sorry, I know I'm scattered, but the Kirtland purchase, that in itself was like a winding up scene. Oliver Granger, there we go, that's his name.
Well,
Oliver
his name
Granger,
would be held in sacred remembrance.
yeah.
And there are some people that say, "Well, who knows anything about Oliver Granger nowadays?" I'm like, it says his name would be held in sacred remembrance.
Yeah, he was sent out to like, hey, go sell off the properties of the church, get whatever you can. He's not going to become a wealthy man or even popular from this. In fact, it probably felt very difficult for him to do his job. Yet he would be made a merchant unto the Lord. And we see what that investment paid off because it's the church, other branches of the restoration, which have preserved those things, which we have now been restored to. So it's amazing seeing this come full circle, full purpose.
I remember being
And
in
so,
primary and hearing about how there's the Kirtland Temple, which we don't have in our possession anymore, and there's the Nauvoo Temple, which got burned down. We are now in a time when they're both in our possession, which to me, that's wow. Wow.
miracles. We're told to expect miracles, right?
Yep.
Seeing a
Seek
lot
and
of,
expect miracles.
it's funny because I'm seeing a lot of push against, oh, just because you build temples, that's not a miracle. The miracle, it really is a miracle because we're literally gathering scattered Israel by doing those things. And the fact that Christianity in general is waning in the United States, whereas the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is being strengthened, being refined, and growing. And I've never seen so much pushback against Latter-day Saints as I have in like the recent, what is it, a couple weeks. And maybe that's just because I started expanding into, what is it, TikTok and Instagram. I just
But
expanded into those things and started releasing some shorts. My goodness, I have more hate from from Christians there than I get love from Latter Day Saints, and it's just heretic, heretic, heretic. You're a heretic, and I'm like, oh my gosh, why are these people so angry? And they're like, you,
yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. We have to stand firm where we are, and also Elder Anderson, the current Elder Neil L. Anderson, did say that as we kind of hold fast, politely get fast to our testimonies of Christ, that other Christians will come to see the strength of our testimonies and eventually want to link up with it. I'm trying to show the temple right now, Newport Beach Temple right here.
well, I can hear movement and everything on my side on my screen. It looks frozen, but I'm not
Uh,
sure if that's what it looks like for everybody else.
okay.
Betty here says in Branson, that's where the Osmonds performed for many years. What's really unique about the Osmonds is they're the whole reason my family became LDS.
Oh, wow.
My family came from being farmers in Illinois, in rural Illinois, Rock Island, I think, Rock Island or Rock something. I actually just visited it recently, and I saw the trees, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like a jungle out here. Like this is amazing. Like I've never seen so much green. I'm so used to being in the Midwest or the Pacific Southwest, and it's all desert all the time and depressing. uh, but it was just gorgeous. Anyways, they're farmers. They sought out the Osmonds and loved them for their family values. And the whole reason my family sought them out was because they wanted to know how to connect and be families forever.
Wow.
And that is where this is the only place where it is.
Well, on my mission in Ireland, 89 to 91, there were a number of people I knew about and spoke with that were like, yeah, I joined the church because of the Osmonds almost 20 years ago. That was the thing in Ireland. And they were
Yeah.
still active members.
It goes to show you just how sharing your talents, whatever it may be, how it can be used for good and bad. You see
Yep.
lots of, I think Lindsey Sterling just recently did a thing. She's the violinist, dancer girl.
Yeah.
Um, in fact, my friend who was a missionary with me served on the mission together, and this is a really cool guy. He uh,
Good.
he went on a date with her, and it didn't go anywhere, but he told me about it. And
Okay.
it's funny to see how things have changed for her. She recently did a thing saying, "Oh, you look happier," and she's drinking coffee. She's like, "Thanks." May or may not be Mormon anymore.
I heard something about that little moment. That's all I heard. I don't know anything more about it than that.
Well, I mean, if she's happy, she's happy. But when you're drinking caffeine, like in coffee form, there's a reason that makes teachers happy. Because being a teacher is kind of miserable.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. We're not trying to shame her or anything like that. It's just we're looking at this dynamic happening in the world right now. Many of these people on TikTok, I had over 600 comments within one day, all
Oh.
calling me heretic and
Oh
saying
wow.
I worship a false Jesus and
Hmm.
everything. And John
A
Smith made
different,
up the whole thing.
a
John
different
Smith, how
Jesus.
many how many wives did John Smith had?
Yeah.
Pocahontas, as far as I know.
Well, yeah. Anti-Mormon 101, I call it.
Yeah, it's it's there's a couple good conversations I've had with people there. People who I'm like, yeah, if what you said was true, I wouldn't believe it either. But what you're saying is not true. So maybe ask yourself, what do we believe, and not just tell us what we believe. And I think as more
Yeah,
people do that, that's
exactly.
why we're seeing such growth.
I don't fault anybody for having questions, concerns, whatever. Like, yeah, that's gonna happen sometimes, but it feels redundant when they get stuck on things that have been solved and answered for years.
Hmm. Yeah,
I'm
and
like, don't
sometimes
get stuck in that trench forever.
yeah, I feel like, man, I can answer this right now, but then I just feel so exhausted. I'm like, "Ugh, do I really have the energy for this right now?" Because it's not so much a debate or argument or anything. It's no, here's correct information on that, but at the same time, gauging whether people will listen or not. I mean, it's always good to
There
give
is the part
good
of
information.
ascertaining if there's sincerity present, and then working from there with individuals.
Yeah,
It's not
and
a package deal of like, well, here's all our rebuttals to everything you're saying. There you go.
yeah, and mentioning sometimes you run into faith crises, and we don't fault anybody for having a faith crisis or
Nope.
running into those issues. In fact, I feel like a faith crisis shows that the Lord trusts you with another step, and that this additional step, it's a faith crisis, which means it's going to be hard. And so my thinking behind this is be as Adam. You continue and be faithful, not knowing the full reason why for everything, you know. And
Yep.
the example we have with Adam is he's making sacrifice unto the Lord, and an angel says, "Why do you do this? I know not, save the Lord commanded me."
Yes, and there is too much of an unfortunate thing that gets presented way too often, saying that the church doesn't like people questioning things. But there's all sorts of conference talks and Ensign and Leho articles and the like, saying it's okay to question things. That's the first step to learning something. Use that
Hmm.
as a learning opportunity.
I think the hard part is that everyone has a different growth experience within the church,
Yep.
and so there's a lot of people who are like, "Gosh, I had this wasn't very good experience with me," and I've had those experiences. I've been a missionary out here in Utah and Idaho, and there's a couple people like leaders. I was just like, I'm like, hey, simmer down now. Like they're very belligerent and hard and difficult, and that really drove me nuts. And I
Uh,
still get that sometimes, but I go, okay, yeah, nobody's perfect here. Things are hard for them. It's hard for me. So we just have to have enough charity and grace to help us get over this next threshold.
With one of my friends, he joined the church about 12 to 13 years ago, and he came from a very interesting background, a strong Jewish background, and he also had Masonic connections. And he did join the church, and he just had just a multitude of questions, and all the people he was encountering for a while were saying, "Oh, don't ask about things. Don't keep that question to yourself." That kind of thing. And then he met me. He's like, "Oh, there's somebody in the church I can talk to about things, and they're not gonna
Mhm.
shame me for having a question." Like I never told him I know everything because I don't. But I'm like I'm gonna try to be one person that can discuss with you, and that in some way has helped him.
Yeah, I think I think there is some sense to that where people say, "Hey, well, just don't look into that," and it's because a lot of people don't have answers themselves. Others are fearful that there might be a faith crisis and not sure how to handle that.
Yeah.
But I think the good rule of thumb is, are you centered in on Jesus Christ?
Yep.
Are you able to forgive and have grace for others? Are you able to look past uh, foibles of the natural man?
Yeah. There's only
And
an expectation on Jesus Christ to be perfect.
yeah, and it seems that when people leave, they they start holding things to everything looks different in retrospect. It should have been this way. It should have been this way.
Yeah.
And that's a perversion of how the Lord, like the Lord, will teach us through retrospection and teach us, hey, now you do it this way. But the way the adversary perverts it is, let's just cast shame, doubt, and blame and say they should have been better for me. It's very selfish. And so there's always a perversion of what the adversary does.
Yep. Um, did you have thoughts about Halloween? I've actually kind of had a couple things come to mind while I was driving out here. But I think you may have had some. If you feel
Well,
like going to that topic,
it's mainly because I love the harvest season, and my channel is kind of harvest themed, haystack.
hey,
Um, and I love autumn. If it were up to me,
yeah.
I would have autumn in like Vermont or New England year round, and I would just that would be my heaven.
Well, I
Is
see those
going through,
pictures of the covered bridges with the autumn leaves around. I'm like, yeah, looks idyllic.
yeah, but I've done two history of Halloween presentations and for the past 2 years, and I was trying to think of something different, but I just thought it might be good just to analyze. Can take from it, because for me, what we did is and it was a way of caroling, but it was done in the autumn season. And what they would do is go knock on a door and offer up prayers for their ancestors. So this
Mm.
was seen as a time where the veil is thinnest,
Oh
and it
wow.
kind of is because it's harvest season.
Oh, good point.
So there is a deeper meaning, and I think there was an original meaning to that, where they understood the harvest season was a time where the veil thins. It happens to be that time when the Book of Mormon was revealed to Joseph Smith. So,
I think it
but
was
you
in the
go
first.
go ahead.
I think it was in the first of your two videos about Halloween where you explained this thing about if you think about the ghosts that look like they're white sheets, and you can think of like Casper, the friendly ghost, who's just this well, a white sheet basically. And I always wonder how did that come about? Well, you kind of explained it. It's that impression of the soul at the veil. That's the
Mhm.
veil on them. And so honestly, when I'm at the temple, I'm about to approach the veil. I have that episode of the haystack coming back to me.
Yeah, yeah. In a way, you're wrapped up in a linen cloth, and that's symbolically like your veil holding you back, or that veil closing you off into the underworld, and your time on earth is now done. You may go. But at the same time, you get this impression of fear or scariness that naturally comes about because things get darker, bats come out, there's more bugs, there's more, things that go bunk in the night. And so it's harvest season, it's just before you go into winter. So things are just naturally a little bit more creepy. But at the same time, I think if 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 something were to try to pierce through the veil, what would that look like? It would be held back by the sheet and it would be trying to come out, trying to press forward. But in reality, we have no need to be fearful of those things because the one person who came back from the dead was Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, you're making me think now of the verse, I think, from Moses that says, "All things are made to bear record of me."
Hmm. that,
So you can
that's
take like a
true.
Halloween symbol and see how it bears record of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. In fact, in England, you had pagan traditions overlap with Christian traditions, and so you actually had a lot of people who would mask themselves because they thought the spirits, if they're masked, the spirits won't recognize them and they'll go past them.
Uh,
If
okay.
I look like a demon or something, or an animal like a deer, that they'll just see me as just an animal and pass me by, and I won't be haunted or hurt.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Also, as I
But
was driving out this way towards the Newport Beach Temple, I had a memory come back to me of how I had a great aunt live out in this area, right on the coast of Newport Beach in the Corona Del Mar area. I think she moved there in the mid 50s, and she was not far from this house that the church owned just a little down the road, a little down Pacific Coast Highway. The church owned a house where they let general authorities stay there. I think they would just pass the key around. Okay, who's going to Newport Beach this week and take the key? And they had like
yeah.
a little house there that they could stay at. And I think they had it up even until President Kimball's time and maybe beyond. I don't know exactly what happened. I think it was Gordon B. Hinckley that was like, well, we can divest ourselves of that, speaking about winding up. But one of
Mhm.
the things I heard from my great aunt is that she would go shopping to like Albertsons and see, prophets and apostles there just getting whatever they need for their couple days. And she said that one time she saw Harold V. Lee pushing his grocery cart and picking out Halloween candy to take back home and give to trick or treaters. So I have that image of President Harold B. Lee putting Halloween candy in his grocery cart in my head.
Yeah. It reminds me, when we were kids, being asked not to wear masks during Halloween time. Pagans would wear these masks, fool the spirits to pass them by, and um,
Hmm.
but it's funny because that wasn't the first time that coats of skin were given to mankind to protect
Wow.
them, right? So it kind of has this echo of something true from ancient, long, long ago, but sometimes we still get these hints of something that it was based on.
So yeah,
That's the way I look at it.
it's not just this purely commercial kitschy thing where you go to the supermarket and buy like a $10 costume for your kid that looks like Woody Woodpecker or Pokemon or whatever. But like you're
I,
saying, you can tie this in with ancient things.
so I think that's what we need to do is restore these holidays back to its original, or we could find the purpose in it and use those purposes. Um, so I think that's something that we try to do with our family. Um, the kids
Yeah,
really
kind
love.
of adopt it in the right way.
Yeah.
Like there's this thing, we're going to observe it properly. I mean, you could say that people, do that with like Christmas trees. Well, you
Hmm.
can tie that in with early Christian symbology. Bunnies at Easter time. Oh, that's like new life and everything, and the perpetuation of life and the eggs and all that. So yeah, I think these things can kind of be gateways to greater learning.
Hmm. Oh,
I'm
sorry,
touching
I
on
got
all the
kind of
holidays now.
yeah. I'm lost in thought because all the thing on our ornaments, we have on all of these ornaments different names for Christ on.
Oh,
We look at the tree as being the tree of life, and
yeah.
essentially, you look at the tree of life. The Word of God leads you up to that, and we try to embody that in the home, kind of like our own temple experience for our family and our home. Not like rituals or anything, but where we're recognizing the theme and purpose of Christ, and we try to do that as we approach the gifts. You know.
That's a good approach. I know. I think his name's David Butler. He was talking about on Stick of Joseph recently about how Christmas trees. That's just really rooted, to use the term, in Christ, in Christ's symbology, in
Mhm.
the tree of life, and everything. So let
Yes,
those understandings and come out and be made more aware of.
I'm glad Dave Butler's come out with you sometimes. Uh, but to me, like looking at King Arthur and the Holy Grail, it, it's used exactly the same purpose. Essentially, after Christ came, you know, pre-Christ, we had the tree of life. You know, you're going to the tree of life. Christ there. And then he's crucified upon a tree, and it's all fulfilled, all those things. But Christians take it a step further, and that may give us a glimpse into early Christianity, where they look at the Holy Grail as that's now the tree of life, because now he's already come, he spilled his blood. And so that's your access to eternal life. That's your access to the temple covenants, to live forever, to to be joined with God forever. And in fact, you have Percival in the King Arthur story. His name actually means pierce the veil. And he's the
Oh,
one who gets access to
okay,
the Grail, has to
okay.
answer questions. Anyways, just something to think about. Something I think we should all kind of know and understand about our past and history. And I think once we do that, it helps us understand the Dark Ages a lot better
Mm,
and recognize like
there are still some golden threads going on.
mhm. To me, the Templar Knights are trying to preserve these ancient traditions to the best of their knowledge and ability. But even the Pope sees them as, you know, or the Pope enforced it, and probably came over with William the Conqueror into England and Scotland, and a lot of the Templar Knights went into different knight groups. In fact, they use knots on their belt, kind of like a of a covenant.
Oh,
In fact, is what happens in other ancient societies. They show knots and strings in their clothing to show it's like, hey, this purchase here is a knot. So it's all
mhm.
collateral, but people tend to want to hear it from the most authoritative figure in the world, or else it's not real. So it makes it
Well,
hard to share things.
what you're saying right now reminds me. I watched this morning a video by it's probably the newest one from Jared Halver. What's his name? Jared Halverson.
Yeah, with Unshaken.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I got his first name right. I don't know.
yeah.
Halverson. Is it Jacob Halverson? I don't know.
I think it's
Halverson. I'm going to say Brother Halverson. He did a
yeah.
video about this week's "Come Follow Me" lesson, and maybe the one that ended yesterday, where it talks about the Apocrypha and how some people will say, just like you're saying, like they're like, I will not pay attention to anything that's not the scriptures or President Nelson, and they think that what the scriptures and President Nelson want them to say. But Brother Halverson was saying the scriptures say to learn from many sources, all sorts of things. You know, read books about history and science and this and that and theology and philosophy. Avail yourself of all this. Of course, put the gospel understanding first as the foundation, but that doesn't mean close yourself off.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think uh, Brother Barnes, gosh,
Jonah Barnes.
Jonah Barnes has all things Apocrypha.
Yeah.
And the thing is I love his study of the Apocrypha. There's
Oh,
so
yeah.
much there. And I love studying ancient history, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the other Mesopotamian smaller kingdoms out there. And it's funny because there's a lot of traditions developed in the Apocrypha that tried to give explanation, but they're based off of true writings. And so it is really kind of here and there. It's like, okay, here's something good and here's something that's not so good. Too much credence to the Apocrypha, saying, we have like three different accounts of Adam or of
Yeah.
Abraham.
Like 5 different ways that Abel was killed or whatever.
Yeah. And but one thing I think we could do is not dismiss the apocryphal things, but keep it there, but also
Yep.
study the historical synchronisms. And because of that, I feel like
Yes.
we have actually identified and found the time of Terah and Abraham.
Mhm.
And
Good.
I think we can officially start naming the prophet or the pharaoh of Joseph
Wow.
and when and where the time of Babel, Tower of Babel was. And I actually have a lot of
Wow.
supporting evidence for this stuff. It's not just, "Here's a cool idea." I've explored every idea there is, and the one I have is the one that nobody's thought of, but it has the most evidence for.
Get that knowledge out there.
Yeah,
Well,
it's just a
sometimes you
matter
have
of
to take what you have now and throw it out and be like, this is where I'm at now. Let's see where the group can take it while I continue my own individual study.
okay. Sorry, I didn't know if I was being called into the house or not.
That's okay.
I feel like every time I start doing a video, I have to stop it, and it's never good. Never good timing. B Doc says the Pope and the Vatican recently enough apologized for all that misunderstanding. Is what it is, uh, but it's
Something.
an interesting development. Yeah, that is really. It's good that we look at things and start recognizing for what it is and repent, you know, and change. I think there's a lot of behavior out here in these mountains in Utah and Idaho where when fault is found, they tend to not address it up front. They tend to ignore it and move on and just no, 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 just forgive and
Deflect,
forget.
obfuscate.
Huh?
Deflect and obfuscate, maybe.
Deflect. Yeah. B Dog also says in relation to Templars. Yes.
Templars. Okay.
Yes. Uh, I feel a very strong, like my mom's side of the family was all Freemason,
Hmm.
and she grew up as Job's Daughters, which is their young women's program.
Oh, well.
So um, I had the opportunity to go into Freemasonry when I was younger, but I had a lot of pushback from Latter Day Saint who has good friends with, who she has since left the church,
Mm,
ironically.
well,
She's like, and I think it's that type of ignorance and judgmental stuff that pushes people away, um,
I had
pushes
my
themselves
friend
away.
who's just I had my friend who's just a year older than me. He joined a little bit after he got back from his mission. Asked my dad if he could write a recommendation, and my dad was like, okay, sure. And my dad's kind of coming from this standpoint back then of like, oh, they might be suspect and everything, but well, whatever. I'll write the recommendation letter. And so my friend joined, and he went for a while. And the thing that kind of sealed the deal for me to not really bother with it is he just said it ended up just becoming a bunch of old men sitting around smoking. I'm like, okay. I mean, I knew enough to not think that what he was doing was like this, hidden insidious evil or anything. But I'm like, well, if that's how you're describing it, that's open my motivation.
Yeah, it's different in all the different chapters. There may be some
Yeah.
that are use it as a local political flex. Um, there's others that uh, they truly try to live up to their oaths. Um, my whole
Yeah.
mother side of the family, I think, were straight as an arrow as could be. Like none of them were LDS. I think that family since started turning LDS, which is really just coincidental. Um, but they have a huge, strong royal history, and so they're very strongly involved, very high ranking there in California. In fact,
Okay.
if you've ever been to the Magnolia Bird Farms out in Anaheim,
Oh,
um,
that's near me.
that's my that's my mom's side of the family. They run that whole chain,
Oh, okay.
but
Okay.
greatest people you'll ever meet.
Wow,
Um,
good.
but I feel
I,
like the Masons, their purpose, they served a purpose, and they preserved a lot of ways to teach things that
mm-hmm.
was instrumental in the restoration. Now that
Yeah.
we have the restoration, I'm not so sure if it's, to me it's unnecessary for me, but um,
I think
I know we're
there's a lot that can be said on it, but my summarized thought on it is it helped Joseph Smith see how there can be an ordinance that has a narrative and a story to it. In addition, because what he kind of knew was like, well, there's baptism. You get baptized. You go
Mhm,
underwater, you come back out. That's the ordinance. It's not. It does have symbolic meaning to it, but it's not telling a narrative like the Masonic ceremonies and the endowment ceremonies. I think it helped him to see that that could be done. Yes, there's more that could be said on it.
mhm, yeah. Well, what should we do for Halloween this year? What should I thought about reading some, maybe going through some ancient scary stories from ancient Mesopotamia and from ancient Greece, and talking about their early ghost stories. Because ghosts back then, uh, Dr. Finkel talks a lot about this. He's an expert in Mesopotamia and cuneiform and all that. But the thing is like, to them, ghost was more like an annoyance, and a headache or an ailment was the impression of something from beyond the veil, that was hurting you. And so they carve you a little clay tablet or spell or something to ward off the evil spirit, so you won't have a headache anymore.
Well, that's kind
um
of like the whole poltergeist thing. They're throwing teacups around in your kitchen. Like, come on, guys. Yeah.
oh, I think it's unique to understand the life and how things were believed back then, because when you really think about it, not a ton changed. um you know it it turns into, you know uh yeah, I maybe I'll save it for Halloween, but I think
We
I'll
could
save it
do
for
one in
Halloween.
October,
Yeah.
early October or late September, something like that. I like the touching on it. You know.
I think we'll go. What I'll do is I'll go through some of the old stories. There's a ghost story from Greece that I really like about a Stoic who sees. It's the first time you hear about a ghost in chains. The chains being
Oh,
kind of like what we
Jacob
see in.
Morley.
Yeah, it's that same kind of purpose is being served. The chains were crafted, during the person's life.
These
Was
chains are the chains I forged in life.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. But this person, the Stoic, just treated the ghost as if he's like, hmm, like way better than Ebenezer Scrooge handled it. But
Yeah.
I think that inspired the story.
Well, I had already been planning on driving over the temple today, and then a couple of minutes before I was about to go, you brought up, getting on the live with you and talking about Halloween, and I thought, how appropriate. We're going to a place where heaven meets earth in the best way possible.
Yeah, it's harvest time. Think about the dreams which Joseph had concerning the haystacks all coming down and pointing to him, and this illustrating something for our last days. It illustrated him serving his family in Egypt and preserving them, and that echoes to today. In fact, when you look at the meaning of Pharaoh, it
Yeah.
means great house. Look
And they
at the
have the
meaning of
mummies
America.
and everything.
We have some comments. B Doc says,
Yep.
I think there are levels within Masonry. Most Masonry is about helping each other and wider society right now. There are a lot of levels. They're preserving and protecting information and techniques for time they might not they might be needed. Once heard ghostly apparitions that repeated at a particular spot, explained as a form of electricity trapped in a particular space after a trauma event. Made quite a lot of sense.
Yeah, repeating
I'm
phantasm.
and he's from Ireland. We have Halloween. You're welcome. Yeah, yeah.
Hey, B-Doc, I went on Ireland on my mission, and I know they were really into talking about ghosts and stuff there, for sure. Definitely a thing there.
We could actually talk about what is it? Not Jack of the Lantern. We could
Oh,
go over that story for
okay.
Halloween and that turn up lantern and the deal he made with the devil and how he tricked the devil.
Yeah.
Be nice if we had someone with an Irish accent to read.
We're going to get you on, B-Doc. You excel at BS chat, okay? B-Doc, before we go, tell us what part of Ireland you're from in the chat. I'm going to see if it's in one of the areas I served in. I do have about 3-4 minutes left, maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah, I should probably go. I said I'd be like 20 minutes and it's been 53.
Well, great discussing with you.
Yeah, I'll and I like going live. I like doing videos. It's just hard to find the time to do it. And when I have the preparation, sometimes I have to do it late at night at midnight and I'm burnt out. But B Doc is from County Fermanagh.
Fermanagh.
Maybe
Okay, right on the border.
Fermanagh.
Okay, well, I served in Newry and Omagh. Omag's not exactly a border town in the same way, but kind of. Yeah, over on the west side. Man, they kept me away from the west, but really heavily in the north. I was in Ulster a lot. County Down, County Antrim. Yep. Thank you for chiming in, B-Doc. I hope people have been able to see the temple from my side.
Well, I should probably get going, but it's nice to hear from you, B-Doc. All those you watching this after, congratulations, you made it this far. But thank you. We'll talk again soon. Let's look at October, and we'll go over stories of Jack and the Lantern. We'll go over some ghost stories from ancient Greece and from ancient Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
take care.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everyone.
And we'll talk about an Egyptian god that looks like a ghost under a sheet. We'll talk about him
Oh,
too.
okay.
He's a funny guy.
Good. Good.
So, all right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Christian.
Yeah. Thanks, Jonathan. Bye now.